The fire crackled low beneath the wide, starless sky, its orange glow dancing across the rough face of Eli Turner, a rancher who had learned long ago that the land showed no mercy to the weak. His ranch sat alone at the edge of the frontier, where maps faded into rumors and law faded into instinct. That night the wind carried a warning, soft, deliberate footsteps beyond the ring of light. Eli's hand tightened around his rifle, heart pounding, not from fear but from memory. For years the word enemy had meant only one thing out. Here, Apache, men who rode like shadows, struck like lightning and vanished like smoke. He had buried friends because of them. He had bled because of them. Yet when the figures emerged from the darkness, he did not fire. 3 of them stood at the edge of the firelight, 2 young men and an older warrior with eyes sharp as flint. They were exhausted, wounded, and desperate. Eli could see it in the way one leaned heavily on a spear, blood darkening his leg. The old instincts screamed at him to pull the trigger, to end the threat before it began. But something else stirred inside him, something quieter, heavier. He remembered a winter long ago when hunger nearly killed him, when mercy from a stranger had saved his life. Slowly, deliberately, Eli set the rifle down. He took a tin cup, poured water, and pushed it toward the fire's edge. The Apache elder watched him carefully, every muscle tense, waiting for betrayal. When Eli added wood to the fire instead of reaching for a weapon, the impossible happened. The enemy stepped closer. They shared the warmth in silence, the fire reflecting in wary eyes. No words were exchanged, only the language of survival. The wounded man was treated with rough bandages, Eli's hands shaking as he worked, knowing one wrong move could be his last. The night stretched long, thick with tension, memories and unspoken hatred slowly dissolving into something unfamiliar, respect, trust, or maybe just a temporary truce born of desperation. As the fire burned down and the stars shifted overhead, Eli felt it deep in his bones. This night would change everything. At dawn, blood or peace would greet the sun. And somewhere beyond the hills, fate was already moving. The first light of dawn crept across the plains like a silent witness, painting the land in pale gold. Eli woke with a start, hand instinctively reaching for his rifle. The fire had burned to embers. The Apache was still there, but not as he expected. They were standing alert, weapons ready, facing the hills. Then Eli heard it, horses, dozens of them. Armed riders surged over the ridge, settlers, bounty hunters, men fueled by fear and vengeance. Someone had followed the tracks. Someone had come to finish a war that never seemed to end. Eli understood in a heartbeat what was about to happen. If the Apache fought, they would be slaughtered. If they ran, they would be hunted. And if Eli did nothing, the fire he shared would mean nothing at all. He stepped forward, placing himself between the riders and the Apache warriors. Shouts erupted, guns were raised. Eli's name echoed through the chaos, men demanding he move aside, calling him a traitor, a fool. The Apache elder looked at him, stunned, disbelief flickering across his weathered face. This was the unthinkable moment. Eli raised his hands and shouted back, his voice steady despite the fear tearing through him. He spoke of the wounded man, of the fire, of the night they did not kill each other, of how hatred had brought nothing but graves. The riders hesitated. Some laughed, others faltered. And then the Apache elder did something no one expected. He lowered his weapon, slowly, deliberately. The others followed. Silence fell over the plain. A single choice, mercy answered by courage. After a long, unbearable moment, the riders turned away, muttering, angry, but unwilling to be the first to break the fragile peace. As dust settled and the threat faded, the Apache elder stepped forward and placed a carved stone at Eli's feet, as a symbol of debt, honor, and protection. Without another word, they mounted their horses and disappeared into the land like the legends they were. Eli stood alone as the sun rose fully, the fire long gone, but its warmth still burning in his chest. He knew the world beyond his ranch would never hear this story, but he also knew something greater than fear had won that morning. And sometimes the bravest act is not pulling the trigger, but choosing to share the fire. Weeks passed after that sunrise. But the land around Eli Turner's ranch never truly returned to silence. Word traveled the frontier the way smoke travels the wind. Twisted, exaggerated, dangerous. Some said Eli had gone mad. Others whispered he had made a pact with the enemy. A few claimed the Apache chief had marked his ranch as protected ground, untouchable by war. Eli heard it all, yet he stayed where he was, mending fences, tending cattle, living each day with the quiet weight of a man who had crossed an invisible line and could never step fully back. Nights were the hardest. The fire still burned, but it no longer felt ordinary. Every crackle reminded him of the faces in its glow, the moment fear had loosened its grip on his heart. Then one evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, riders appeared again, not settlers this time, but soldiers, bluecoats, federal authority. They came with questions, sharp and unforgiving. They accused Eli of harboring enemies, of weakening the frontier, of choosing mercy over loyalty. Eli listened, jaw set, eyes steady. He told them the truth, not dressed as heroism, not softened by excuses. He spoke of wounded men, of hunger, of a fire shared not to betray his people, but to save his soul. The soldiers laughed at first. Then they noticed something strange. The land was untouched. No raids, no stolen cattle, no burned homesteads for miles around. A fragile peace, born from one night of impossible trust. As the soldiers rode away, uncertain and unsettled, Eli felt a presence behind him. He turned to see a lone Apache rider at the edge of the field, the elder's son. He dismounted slowly, placing another carved stone beside the first. No words were spoken, but the message was clear. The fire had changed more than one fate. Eli watched him leave, knowing this peace would not last forever, but also knowing something unbreakable had begun. In a world built on blood, one man had chosen warmth over war, and the land remembered. As night fell and the stars returned, Eli added wood to the fire, not knowing who might one day step into its light, but ready to face them without hatred, because some fires are not meant to destroy. Some are meant to guide. Winter arrived early that year, harsh and unforgiving, as if the land itself was testing the truth of the peace Eli Turner had helped ignite. Snow buried the plains, silence stretching wider than fear ever had. One night, long past midnight, the sound of frantic hooves shattered that silence. Eli reached for his rifle out of habit, then paused. Outside, a young settler boy collapsed from his horse, frostbitten, barely breathing. He spoke only one word before losing consciousness: Apache. Panic clawed at Eli's chest, but he remembered the stones by the hearth, the promise carved into their lines. Against every warning shouted by the frontier, Eli built the fire higher than ever and waited. Before dawn, dark shapes emerged through the snowfall, Apache riders, led by the same young warrior who had left the stone. They carried medicine, food, and the boy's sister wrapped in blankets, rescued from a frozen ravine miles away. No weapons were raised, no threats spoken. The fire did what guns never could. The boy survived. The riders vanished with the storm. By morning, Eli understood the final truth. The unthinkable hadn't happened at sunrise. It had only begun. Mercy had survived winter. And as long as the fire burned, so would hope.